You said you were quiet. My mother is very quiet but very strong. I met a woman from Eritrea just last April in a workshop, and she had a very tiny voice. She spoke very gently and she was very proper. And there was something about her that kept ringing in me when she spoke like that. No, I suppose that's something to do with my grandmother. But finally she told me, I was imprisoned for 5 years. And they tortured me, and I learned how not to speak. And I don't speak much, and I couldn't sleep. I said, this is what they do to women. They torture you, you're in prison in Eritrea, and nobody knows that you're there. Like we were hearing from prison testimonies, like we were sharing this story earlier on. I remember another woman who told me exactly the same. I was very quiet in school, and I told her, I think you are very right, because what could you have said to such a world? The rest of us are mad in a sense. We keep even telling it to policemen, and they're beating you, and you're telling them, I live for something higher. It is not possible that we continue listening to things that just are so amazing. So we need this combination, like I saw in my mother and in my grandmother. And I just want to say that when then you were speaking about Esther Boka-Izmia, I was thinking, my goodness, that's the program we need in Kenya. But we've been getting all the soap operas.
Well,
old ones as well, La Mujer de mi Vida and things like that. And, So I think that, it's time. Yeah? I need to just say,
since this is a conversation, I just wanted to interject for a quick minute to talk a little bit about the power of soap operas.
Yes.
Again, it is no secret. Not so long ago, I read some studies about how the introduction of soap operas in certain parts of Brazil has meant that particularly the characters in these soap operas who have been middle class and who have typically not had very many children, over the course of 2 or 3 years, sociologists and anthropologists who have studied these regions that now have these soap operas beaming into their homes have found that women have made the decision in their own families that they will not have any more children, or that they will have fewer children than their husband. This is actually happening in various parts of Asia as well. In India, for example, a number of studies, again, have shown that as a result of not just Bollywood films, but the female characters in various soap operas have convinced millions of women to leave the home, not leave the home for good, leave the home without their fathers and husbands' permission, to ensure that daughters finally do go to school, to explain to their husbands that there is no shame in having daughters and not just sons. In other words, there was one study very recently that came out which actually put a figure, a number of years that a soap opera amounts to in terms of education. And they said that exposure to these soap operas is the equivalent of 5 years of formal education.
Wow.
Well, I did study Mexican soap operas for 3 years. What they do is they do that on one side, and then on the other hand, what they do is they let you know that you can play the game of double standards. So if you're a woman, you can liberate, but you have to be manipulative, and you have to be a sex vampire or whatever, and you have to lie a lot to get your way. And you have to be really beautiful to be able to get away with it. And if you're a maid in the house, it's the character, how they build the characters. But most of them is like the most famous soap operas in Mexico that went around the world, actually. One of them is Muchacha Italiana viene a casarse. Italian girls comes to get married in Mexico. Anyway, this very, very white woman with green, huge, beautiful eyes was a maid in a house of brown people and middle-class brown people. And she was so devious that she, went working there, and she was cleaning the house like this, and the husband would fall in love for her. And the whole soap opera, which is the most famous soap opera that went around the world, Mexican soap opera, was that the whole thing is to show you the wife is a witch. And this beautiful green-eyed woman it's so sweet because she cleans the house, and the wife wants to liberate herself from domestic violence and blah, blah, blah. I mean, all the issues that the feminists were talking about back then in the 70s in Mexico.
Well,
So the wife was trying to get free from that, was like the witch. And then the other one was cleaning and cooking and beautiful and sexy. So she was available. And so at the end, he divorces, you know, and she falls on the street and a car runs over her, something like that. I don't remember really. But the fact is that they get rid of the wife somehow. So he is morally correct. Actually, that's really important. He's not the one leaving her for the other one, but something happens. Aside of being a witch, something bad happens to her. And then he falls in love and they get married. And they are really happy forever and ever again. And one day I'm in Senegal and I'm trying to go through the customs 3-4 years ago, and the guy's like, "Where are you from?" And I'm Mexico. "What is Mexico?" And I said, "It's a country." "Oh, Mexico, Mexico." And he goes, "Oh, soap opera, Thalia, Thalia." And he goes, "Thalia?" And I said, "Thalia is a blonde, beautiful young woman in the soap operas." And I said, "Oh, yes, you know Thalia? Of course, we're friends." You know? And he goes, "Oh, good. Go." And I'm like, get alive, you know?
You see? Exactly. The empowering effect of soap operas.
And I'm caught in between. Let me just finish.
Can I just ask Malala, do you have soap operas in Afghanistan?
Yeah, of course. We have many TVs there in Afghanistan and also shows, but there is no freedom for women, a way that now you are talking about your countries. Unfortunately, in Afghanistan, even they are not looking to women as a human and insulting them in different ways. But in media that sometimes they shows and do some interviews with them, not only women, men and women, especially with Democrats, there's lots of censorship.
How are women portrayed on Afghan TV? How are they portrayed? How do they?
Yeah, for example, it's very important to wear a scarf when you go on the TV. In my opinion, it's a very personal issue. But there it will create a big problem. For example, if you go and be ready in the TV without a scarf. And also, if you talk about, for example, freedom of opinion, your opinion, it is impossible. There you receive many death threats like this.
Can I ask you, do women in Afghanistan in general support what you're saying, do you think?
For me, of course, that, for example, my experience inside of Parliament, when I was there, I feel I'm alone. Yeah, it is true that in Parliament we have some Democrat men and women that, as I said earlier, they are very few, even we can count them. Even sometimes some of these people as well told me, "Malala, mix with your speeches some honey, some sugar, it's risky for you."
Are you aware that in 50 or 60 years a little girl will remember your name and say that you changed the history of women in Afghanistan?
After 50 years, what you want that your people will say about you. Regarding the selfish, I didn't want to answer, and apologize me for my not good English, but I want to say that we must do something today that tomorrow that they will not, I don't know how to say. What we do today, all of it will be recorded in the history of our country. Let's plant those good things that tomorrow other people, other children, not only children of our country, men and women of our country, even around the world, enjoy for this. That's what I wish and I do. And I'm risking the life because of this cause, especially that the criminals of our country, one day they must be brought to the International Criminal Court. That's why I'm risking the life, and this is the main part of my struggle, and also for women's rights, as they are. Unfortunately, the situation for them is like hell today in my country. So we need your help as much as you can for women, children, and men of my country.
Thank you.